We were very pleased to be part of the second Lawlands Shoulder Congress, and you can find here the video of the presentation of Green Shoulder Circle. These are our conflicts of interest because we are conceptor and consultant for SBM Society. And I just say a few words because 10 years ago we tried to develop a reusable screwdriver for second row anchors. But it was maybe early because at this time nobody doesn't care about an eco-responsible approach. Quite all the drawings come from the French comics improved by Green Shoulder surgeons, called All Tips and Tricks for Rotator Cuff Repair. This single video explains all the problematic. These are all the screwdrivers used after 1 half-day surgery. And our problem in France is that legislation obliged to incinerate them. We were amazed to discover that a Netherlands team published just 1 week after us another article about eco-responsible approach in orthopedic surgery. Perform a wonderful job, times improve exploits, and we had an example this morning about arthroplasty replacement. But it's like when you climb the Everest, you generate an horrible volume of wastes. It's a reality that the climate change. Thanks to gas and petrol, we live like superheroes compared to human beings 2 centuries ago. And I invite you to read the French comic World Without End, written by Jean-Marc Jancovici. Invited, the carbon impact measurement method. When just 1 total knee replacement generates more than 11 kilos of weights, equal with weights generated by a 4-people family during 1 week. Look at the horrible volumes generated by healthcare in France every year. And some surgeons are considering the problem in the United States, where healthcare industry is responsible of more than 8% of greenhouse gases emission of the country. In France, anesthetists were the first to work on the problem of weights after surgery, and they invented the concept of green block. Block in French means operating theaters, or you can translate with green operating theaters. Now just a word about Green Shoulder Circle history. November 21 began the first talk about the Sustainable Commission of Softcoat. And this event I prepare a draw to sensibilize people about the end in France of our single-use screwdrivers after rotator cuff repairs. French Arthroscopic Society Congress took part in December 21, and the best oral communication prize was given to Christelle Conso, who talked about estimation of carbon impact of arthroscopic rotator cuff repair in France. I will talk about it later. On February 22, Johan Bart, president of SFA, went to Norway for international courses, and he asked me to prepare him draw, and I said to him, I try better, I prepare a movie. And when he came back, he said that young surgeons and residents were very interested by this approach, and he said to us, we can do more, we must do more. So we discussed all together and decided why not becoming web influencer. The place was free, we want to stay in our specialty, the shoulder, and more than a group, we wanted to become a circle with free access to link and share this philosophy. And after many trials, we checked the final logo of the Green Shoulder Circle. Then, for our mission of web influencer, we created a YouTube channel to host future videos. We created a LinkedIn account to talk about the topic. This is 3 examples of posts of Green Shoulder, and I want to talk about the left one. You can see the X-ray of a reversed prosthesis, and the frame is made with all the paper notice that you threw away after just one surgery. Just count. 1 for the base plate, 1 for the glenoid sphere, 4 for the screws, 1 for the stem, 1 for the humeral polyethylene. And I ask you the question, who in his life have ever read paper notice of a screw? Who? With European legislation, you can avoid it and put a QR code. But with FDA legislation, the paper notice is an obligation. And that is totally abnormal. Finally, we created the Green Shoulder Circle community hosted by a BMed platform. Thanks to it, we realized on last July the first webinar of Green Shoulder Circle talking about many topics around eco-responsible approach in healthcare, but also in car automobile industry to improve comparison. Web influencing is an incredible weapon because our goal is trying to change industry opinion. And if you want to do it, you must change first surgeons' opinion. And we realized that there were 3 categories of surgeons. First, the eco-friendly introverts that we must unlock. Secondly, those who ignore themselves and we have to reveal them. But the problem is with the third category, those who don't care at all, and we have to make them feel guilty. So I want to talk now about the Green Shoulder Circle philosophy. This philosophy is very near of a presentation of Pim van Edmonk, who talked about the 5R philosophy. If you don't know it, that means single use, reduce waste, reuse instrument, repurpose and recycles your wastes. This is the plan of their presentation. And this is the philosophy of a Green Shoulder. It's like a castle with 4 pillars or 4 towers. And I will talk about each towers one after one. Okay, we are surgeons, we like improve surgery, but we have to talk about non-surgical treatments. We have to be ethics and respect indication of treatment, especially for example, rotator cuff tears in seniors. We talked previously about the statistic analysis about Cochrane library, and there's not a great difference in functional results when you compare surgery and physical treatment. Another example is with acute acromioclavicular trauma, and all the 5 Green Shoulder surgeons stopped to improve surgery on stage 3 of Rockwood classification. We propose conservative treatment, and that's only in case of failure that we go to surgery with stabilization and ligament reconstruction. We think it's important to simplify patient management, and you reduce carbon impact when you learn and you perform yourself ultrasonography in the post-operative consultation for your patients. For example, it can help you in rare case to discover early an anchor pull-out with unexplained pains. When you don't do it yourself, you discover the pull-out 6 months after on an RMI. You propose a second surgery, but sometimes it's too late to get a good healing of the cuff repair. Thanks to COVID pandemic, we discovered the teleconsultation, and in some cases, like this patient with a frozen shoulder after a rotator cuff repair, it's a useful tool and you can easily evaluate his range of motion. So if you can avoid him 4 hours car driving just to have a look on his motion and give him a prescription for physiotherapist, you are able to do it on your screen. Now talk about this very important pillar, the reusable instrumentation. We've got the possibility to use wonderful tools, and thanks to them we can improve surgery quickly and sometimes very, very quickly. But look at the end. All we have to throw away in the dustbin. Now look how industry made choice for us. And when you improve a cruciate reconstruction and you use screws, they are all in a small package. And you take a usable screwdriver in the box, and at the end you put screwdriver again in the box. So why is it different for shoulder? Why industry decided that we had to use single-use screwdriver for rotator cuff repair? This choice was made 20 years ago in United States because of the price of 1 minute of use of operating theaters. Okay, the use of reusable screwdrivers for cuff repair takes a little time more, but very few. We found two other industrial partners who tried to develop it, Parcus in England and Tigan in United States. But actually the concept is not sexy. It's difficult to convince Ferrari lovers to drive a small eco-responsible car. I just want to show you the system that we use with SBM, and it's not a very important waste of time. And we would like that all the industry improve a challenge with the best reusable screwdriver, no waste of time. And I can say that after each surgery, I'm very proud to put my screwdriver in the box and not throw it away in the dustbin. Now let's talk about green operate theaters actions. How to get green in anesthesiology. The main goal is trying to reduce general anesthesia and develop local regional anesthesia and also Rolland techniques. In 2022, a group of French anesthesiologic experts wrote recommendation how to reduce the carbon impact of general anesthesia. And they encouraging stop using nitrous oxide and sevofluran compared to other anesthesiologic drugs. And we think it's important that tomorrow you talk about this topic with your anesthesiologist, discuss for each surgery what can be done together trying to reduce the impact carbon of anesthesia. There are many discussions about the use of single-use gloves and a reusable one in operating theaters. First, you have to know that there is no difference in infectious risk between the two categories, and other studies showed that reusable gloves have a lower environmental impact compared to single-use, and if you're taking in account the consumption of water, soap and energy. This video presents you the work of a French ophthalmologic resident. He improved his thesis about the carbon impact of ophthalmologic surgery. This video shows you the travel of all the components of a single-use kit for intraocular injection for macular disease. The goal is to treat quickly, to realize an injection with all the components in a kit in order to save time. The time to realize injection is 4 minutes in the preparation and use of the kit, and after you throw it away. And the numbers of kilometers that realized all the components is just horrible to see. So maybe tomorrow you will have to refuse to use those kits for skin preparation in operating theaters. Personally, I will refuse. I also refuse to use single-use cannula. And I put in my box for rotator cuff repair a metallic cannula. This is really helpful when you have to work through the rotator interval for subscap repair. Also when you have to treat a small tear of supraspinatus. And it's also helpful to use it like a rasp for example, a heel sacrum plissage. This is a special photo for Laura from a French neurosurgery team. They remove a brain tumor in this patient, and they asked him to play violin to be sure to improve no lesion on his playing area. I used during many years single-use scalpels and I decided to stop it, and now I use reusable grips and we just change the blade. I talked about metallic cannula that I put in my boxes, but you also have to do the job in the other way. Consider that if you have a tool you never use in your box, you have a useless consumption of energy, soap and water for sterilization. So work with your nurse and your sterilization unit and put out of the box instruments you use less than once a month. They will be available in single-use package if you really need them. Open an instrument box if you really need it. For example, when I begin a rotator cuff repair, the table is free. I improve bursal and glenohumeral exploration, and when I check that I can repair the lesion, I ask the nurse to open the box. You don't waste any time, and it's better for the planet. We also have to talk about arguments to choose between open and arthroscopic latarjet procedure. Eco-responsible approach is also important to take into account, because you see on the left that you just need 2 screws and a screwdriver, and look about all you need on the right side to perform the same with arthroscopic surgery. Eco-responsible and economic approach often go in the same way. And before the pandemic COVID crisis, Christelle Conso improved this study about the cost of open and arthroscopic surgery just with material needed. This is a big difference. And we have to talk about all the water that we use for arthroscopic surgeries. This draw is not one of mine, but I find it very funny, especially the afraid anesthesiologist. In many French establishments, arthroscopic fluids are collected in a plastic box and are thrown away and sometimes are incinerated. There is no infectious risk if you put it in city water collectors. I now use since 2 years a fluid collector, which also helps nurse in operating theaters thanks to less manipulations. And we must do all we can to collect all this water because burning water is a nonsense. Christelle Conso explained us during SFA that when you use fluid collector, you improve no general anesthesia to your patient and you improve surgery. On ambulatory, you reduce on 10% the carbon impact of surgery. You have to know that half of the carbon impact of one rotator cuff repair is a consequence of medical device, and half of the carbon impact of this medical device is a consequence of transports. Be curious and look at this logo on the packaging of medical device you use and look at where they are manufactured. I will prefer to use a medical device made in Europe or in France, that one coming from Costa Rica or India. I personally always try to work with French and European industrial partners because this is eco-responsible. I show you the packaging of 4 second-row anchors model, and of course the smallest one is inserted with reusable screwdriver. So thanks to reusable instrumentation, you have smaller packaging. That means that you have lower transport impact on price and carbon impact. And you have also a higher storage in your institution. These are the waste of French establishment 3 or 4 years ago. We were bad school students and put all the waste in those yellow bag. That means medical waste with infectious risk, and they went directly for incineration. And this is a picture of what you get when you try to be eco-responsible. On the left picture, all the waste after just one rotator cuff repair. Actually, we have no yellow bag of medical waste with infectious risk. There's in a transparent bag all plastic and cartons that will be recycled. In the black bag, that all we consider like domestic waste. And we've got the problem in France with all tools in the blue box. Shaver blades, single-use screwdrivers, electrocoagulation probe that must be destroyed. But we are allowed to recycle metal like all the cable of electrocoagulation probe or electric scalpels. And if you have time during surgery, improve the measurement of those cables. Some in my institutions are near from 4 meters. We cut them, wash them, and they are allowed to be recycled. You can also try to give a second life to those papers packaging, and for example, when we open a box for one patient, we use the paper for the next one for skin prepper. I give you an advice. Before start recycling in operating theaters, be sure of your supply chain after all you do. We had surprise in my institution at the beginning because we made many efforts in operating room, but after all plastic and cartons we separated was put in domestic waste by maintenance team. The last problem in France with recycling is medical glass. Because there's a risk of ground pollution because of medical drugs, and it's also actually forbidden to wash it and recycle it, so it's destroyed and incinerated. And it's a shame because glass is a component that can be recycled indefinitely. I finished with the last pillar, which is maybe the most philosophically important one. It treats about how to perform a custom-made and eco-responsible surgery to each patient. We've got the possibility to use instruments for transosseous tunnels, but be careful because some ones are single-use devices. Other instruments are reusables, but some of reusable transosseous tunnelers sometimes need the use of an implant. Of course, you want the best result for your patient and the best healing, but when you've got the choice, decide to improve repair techniques that use the smallest number of anchors. You will save time, your establishment will save money, and you will have an eco-responsible approach. That's why the tensile band technique is one of the best green rotator cuff repair technique. Since 10 years, I perform a V-bridge technique. That means that I try to use just 1 second row anchors, even if I use 2 or 3 first row anchors. Here is some examples of eco-responsible repairs, and you can treat thanks to this large tears. And I just want to say that I don't understand those type of publication who explain that when you perform a split bridge, that means without knots on the first row, the risk of failure of second row anchors, and the solution is to use a third row. Thanks to this, industry will be happy because that means that you will use 6 to 8 anchors to treat one patient. And I want to say improve knots on the first row and you won't have any problem. We are not surgeons, don't we? We also talk about balloon, but there's a big problem with publication around patch. Why? Because firstly, there's a high compositional variability. And secondly, there's a high indication variability. I recently saw a post on LinkedIn of an American surgeon who put 4 anchors and a patch on the supraspinatus lesion of 1 centimeter. I don't understand. And I also don't understand when industry propose patch to treat superficial side tear of the supraspinatus like on the middle picture. A good physiotherapy is enough. It isn't. An acromioplasty can be an economic solution. Little bit proud of this article, not because I'm first author, but because Green Shoulder Circle is the last one. It's amazing. And this presents a technique combining a bridge and the central tensile band, and thanks to it we can treat large rotator cuff tear with a good healing and just 3 anchors. It's also possible to perform this technique with 6 strands and just 1 second row anchors, and for this use a metal loop to pass strands at the first time and 2 strands at the second time. And I let you have a look on the arthroscopic view with the tension and the good contact between bone and tendon. And I finished with this presentation of a zip knot technique from my friend Bruno Zeppoli, also one of the green shoulder surgeons, for small to medium lesion of supraspinatus. This is a knotless tensile band technique with the use of a suture and a tape, and if perform a central loop with the suture called in France tête d'alouette, and is used for climbing techniques. And thanks to it, we got a very good contact between bone and tendon, and you can avoid hair. A French author, Jules Verne, said, "All that is impossible must be achieved." And this is right in our operating theaters. That's why all you perform at home when you recycle plastic, cartoon, you must begin and do exactly the same in your institutions. You have to recycle, reprocessing, and you can become a green surgeon when you take account about eco-responsible arguments in the choice of treatment for your patients. I give you this tool to beginning safely. It's called the Green Checklist, posed by the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. Start with all the points and you will be on the good way. Thank you very much, and join the Green Shoulder Circle. Talk about it with your colleagues and your nurse. Thanks a lot.